You're watching the Eternal Tournament Series.
Hello and welcome back to the semifinals of the Eternal Tournament Series, Season 5, Weekly Number 5. Yes, that's the entire title. I think I got it all there. 4 players remain, and we've got a doozy of a matchup in front of us here. We've got Notorious GHP going up against Hulkbuster with some, maybe I would classify these as some greedy 3-faction decks. What do you think here, Calimdir?
Well, they both need a triple of 3 different influences. I don't know if you would call that greedy or not. That's subjective, but that's about as heavy into influence you get in just about any deck you'll see on ladder.
Yeah, so let's specifically go into these. We saw Notorious GHP earlier today on FTJ Control. 4 Heart of the Vaults alongside an Ikaria, some Rise to the Challenge, and just a whole lot of good stuff. Diogos, your Combre Healers, Desert Marshals, Torch, Harsh Roll. You name a good card in those 3 factions, it's probably somewhere here in this list just waiting to do really dumb, powerful things.
Yep, and he's got 2 Rise to the Challenge to find whichever unit he needs there.
Yep. So on the other side is a list we have seen similar things to before, but we haven't seen this at all today. Hulkbuster, ETS stalwart, is on Mokto Armory. So how about you break that one down for us?
Yeah, so I really like this list. It's not quite like calling it armory is a little bit generous. It does have 4 Sword of Ikaria, 4 Runehammer, and a Charchain Flail. So that's uh, 9 weapons. But it doesn't have any artisans. It doesn't have stash. It doesn't have a lot of like what you kind of can expect out of an armory deck, and only has 1 Throne Warden. This is a deck that is more of like a Fire, Justice, Shadow control shell with Mokto and Ikaria as finishers. And he's playing 4 copies of both, which I think is really cool for this time meta full of Dawnwalkers and stuff, where traditional Armory has lost a lot of its power.
Yeah, a lot of times Armory can't quite keep up with the speed of some of these Praxis decks that are just applying a lot of pressure and then pointing burn to your face. And one of the best ways to turn it on them is if you somehow manage to stabilize, just play an Ikaria into an Ikaria into an Ikaria. Maybe one of these Ikarias War Cries an Inquisitor Mokto, and then you just cackle Manai.
Yeah, and going up on like more traditional removal and less weapons helps a lot because you don't get the 2-for-1s you want out of your weapons against these decks that are running giant Unison Dawnwalkers.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how this game plan works out for Hulkbuster here, because he is up against a pretty big mid-range deck, right? Going to be facing down some Ikarias from Notorious GHP and Heart of the Vaults and all of that. So a lot of haymakers will be coming. We'll be getting this match underway shortly. But who do you like here? Who do you think's the advantage?
So despite what I said about Hulkbuster's deck being tuned to have a better chance against these Praxis decks, I still think it's still kind of an armory deck and it still has a lot of those same weaknesses. So I'm currently favoring GHP, especially post board once he can take out the harsh rolls. But these first 2 games are going to be pretty close, I think. I'm leaning towards GHP though.
Yeah, this will be interesting in that, as you mentioned, like the harsh rules are less awkward in Hulkbuster's list, right? He just simply has more weapons to play compared to the FTJ. Even though it's called control, it's looking to control with the board by playing units out. So there's some tension with harsh rule and these units, but you play the harsh rule here because sometimes you're going to develop slowly. You don't have all the early removal that's afforded to this like Mokto Armory list, so you need it. But I will be intrigued to see if these harsh rules come out for Notorious GHP post board.
Yeah. I mean, because there are definitely some threatening units on the side of Hulkbuster, but I think they come down a little too late for you to really care about. Harsh Rule and Ikaria has Aegis, so it's not a great matchup there.
Speaking of not great, the players are resolving mulligans. I kind of lost visual on Hulkbuster. It looks like they're mulling here. Notorious GHP already mulliganed into a pretty ugly hand. Double time source and a fire source. Okay, but that Amber Acolyte maybe makes it a little bit more
Yeah,
appetizing.
Amber Acolyte is a good draw here. He wants to draw another power so he can actually cast it. But yeah, he's going to be playing from behind a little bit here. Now that we have Hulkbuster's hand back up, I can see Hulkbuster's hand is great. He's
Oh,
got
yeah.
early interaction, a quarry, and a harsh roll, as well as his only real card draw spell in Privilege of Rank.
Yep, so casting Privilege of Rank here doesn't want to play something like Sword of Ikaria into open torch power or anything like that. Instead, just getting this clunky 3-cost spell out of hand so he can guarantee that they'll be curving out the rest of this game.
Yeah, and did he already cast another quarry before then? Is that how that got reduced?
Yeah. We that was his turn 2, was quarry into a Sword of Ikaria. Now we're probably going to quarry into another Sword of Ikaria here, and one of these cheap swords will most likely come out here. You saw a pause for a torch last turn. I think just getting these swords in under the torches is a good idea.
Yeah, so both players are going to be fairly happy with that trade. And now, Notorious GHP, he got his, he drew the power to play the Acolyte, so he's got his Justice, and he's doing all right. He's not playing quite maybe as fast as he wants to against a deck like this, but he's going to be able to play his units, and his overall game plan is pretty robust versus this, harsh rules and weapons. So I think he's feeling okay.
And Notorious GHP going to be real happy to see that he's getting a 2-for-1 here as Hulkbuster, just trying to make use of these torches and Sword of Icarias, which really don't have that much to do in this matchup, and chooses to throw both of them at this Sandstorm Titan. In the meantime, GHP gets a little bit closer to casting this Heart.
Yeah, so he has to get that fire influence there because he has the Heart of the Vault in hand. He only has one Ikaria in his list, which he's planning to get off of Rise at some point. So he's not really in a rush to get another Justice.
Looks like GHP choosing to just get the 6/6 down, draw some cards. But this 5/5 Throne Warden, crucially big enough to stave off any kind of aggression for now. Hulkbuster, thinking about if he wants to use this harsh rule, but doesn't have anything to follow up, and is instead going to hope that Notorious GHP puts more on the board.
Yeah, I think Hulkbuster just 2-for-1 himself a few too many times. Now that GHP committed all that removal, I think Hulkbuster's feeling okay harsh rolling here, and he's in a reasonable position. But this Rise to the Challenge is just going to get like another Heart of the Vault, and GHP's going to be right back in it.
Yep, both players will be rising very shortly, so they'll be able to reload. I'm not sure what Hulkbuzz is going to rise for, but I think your prediction of rising for a Heart of the Vault here is a reasonable thing. Although now that they found the final third Justice source, they can comfortably get Ikaria here, and that's what GHP does.
Yeah, once he had that Justice and Ikaria was live, that's definitely the play. Having a flyer is nice, and just dealing a ton of damage.
What about
and
getting Mokdo
obviously
here?
Great.
Getting a 7/5 Inquisitor Mokdo.
Well, he doesn't know what GHP got, but he's probably going to guess Ikaria, right? I'm sure he's well informed
Ikaria,
enough.
or even, if it is Heart of the Vault, either way, Mokdo's a 7/5 Flying Revenge, right?
Yeah, and so I like Mokdo because he can play it the turn he gets it, which is probably why he got it, and he knows it can block this Ikaria that he expects to be coming down.
GHP draws a Sandstorm Titan, not really doing a whole lot yet, but will. Crucially here, I also have to mention, Hulkbuster's drawn 3 Sword of Icarias this game, and that's probably one of the worst cards you could get in this matchup. So not too happy about the luck on that end, but doing a good job of navigating this game despite that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's, I think, 2 lines of play here, which is just playing the Ikaria out, trading, getting in the Warcries, or trying to maybe just get in for 2, like even bait a torch on the Mokdo or something. But yeah, he goes for the Ikaria. I think that's the more aggressive, safer line. Weird to say aggressive and safer, but
and Sword of Ikaria number 4 shows up, and Hulkbuster is like, "What did I do to deserve this?" Yeah, we're going to see if the Warcry 5 pays off faster than the Revenge does. That'll be a big thing. But in the meantime, a 5/6 shows up to threaten lethal.
Yeah, and that's just lethal. He's got to play, even a sword just gains him health, but he's dead to the torch in hand that he doesn't know is there.
Yep, Notorious GHP will probably spot this. Swing first just to make sure there's no fast spell shenanigans going on, and then the torch will come in to finish off Hulkbuster. We'll have to go to another game before we move to sideboards. so we don't have to speculate on that just yet. But I think that this prediction so far is panning out. Notorious GHP takes game 1.
Yep, I think while he's still got all these weapons in his deck, it's gonna be pretty rough um, for Hulkbuster. But I mean, he can just not have a draw with 4 or 5
Yeah.
sort of Icarias, and end up playing a bunch of Machtos and Icarias and take over a game absolutely. So it just depends on how that turns out.
Yeah, if one of those war cries from the initial swords hit, a hammer of or Auric Runehammer instead of another sort of Icaria, that might have been a slightly different game where you have a slightly better weapon, but just wasn't quite the case. Yeah.
I just spied a very interesting card in somebody's sideboard, but we'll talk about that after this game.
Yeah, if you're talking about a certain 12 drop, I don't know if we're going to see that. But anyway, this game is underway. Players are just developing their power. Notorious GHP using Find the Way to get all of the fixing that greedy deck of his needs. And in the meantime, Hulkbuster drawing more Sword of Icarias, which seems to be the theme of his deck today.
Oh yeah, Sword of Icaria, right where you want to be, versus Heart of the Vault and Combre Healer.
Yeah. So Combre Healer does come out here over fixing more. Just one Notorious GHP just to be the first to get something on the board. And Hulkbuster responds by drawing more power.
Yep. I mean, Privilege of Rank is fine here,
Mhm.
as long as he doesn't continue to draw power for the rest of the game. Also, drawing the 1-up Privilege of Rank both games so far, pretty fun.
Yeah, I think that's a card you're kind of happy to draw in this matchup. Like, you're going long and you just throw down haymakers. But yeah, this Combre Healer is unkillable. And honestly, GHP is only going to be dropping even bigger units here on out.
Yeah, and the Desert Marshal for the Machto, I'm not sure how super relevant the Revenge would actually be, but having Desert Marshal Torch for this Machto is pretty good. It's kind of a 3-for-1. I mean, he does get a 2-1 out of it, so Hulkbuster's not too sad, but GHP's just got a lot of gas between this Heart of the Vault and Parliament. He's totally fine making that trade.
Yep. So Hulkbuster's like, something I can actually kill with a Sword of Icaria, and eats that up. Although I imagine GHP will respond by eating the Sword in Kind with
the heart. Yeah, absolutely. And he's going to get to draw a card off this heart, which is going to be great. And he's also got a perfect influence for everything now. He can cast that Icaria if he gets it.
Yep. That one of Icaria, of course, rise to the challenge, making it slightly more than an actual one of. And Hulkbuster is like, do I need to just trot out this harsh roll? I guess so. Hoping that they play something that dies Auric Runehammer next turn so you can Maiden plus Hammer. And we'll see how Notorious GHP responds.
Yeah, I kind of like maybe just playing the Maiden out, but I think that's because I know GHP's hand, not because of anything else.
So,
and now he's got Icaria. Okay.
Opts to play out the Maiden here rather than just slamming an Auric Runehammer into a bunch of open power. And Notorious GHP rips a harsh roll off the top and is like, all right, I'll use that to take out the...
Yeah, opts to play a card instead of passing and not playing a card. Always a reasonable choice.
Yeah, he could have played 2/4/4 flyer. Harsh rule seemed bad.
I meant on Hulkbuster's side with the Maiden.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, and now GHP is committing to this board. Great Parliament and Seraph come out, try and stop the onslaught of this Icaria. But as I mentioned, Auric Runehammer slightly better than Sword of Icaria in this matchup, and it's going to get some kills in here and free up Icaria to keep going.
And the Slay also just doing a lot of work here. So this is what Hulkbuster needed to do to win, which was to be the first person with the relevant threat. And this is harsh roll is super awkward in this matchup. We talked about it, and it just it matches up really poorly against Icaria.
Yep, but Notorious GHP finds a Vanquish so he can deal with this Icaria. Unfortunately, the Auric Runehammer is still in play, and Icaria's gotten a few War Cries in, so we'll see who ends up hitting eventually. In the meantime, a 4-1 Auric Runehammer does what it needs to do, and Notorious GHP is hoping to find some more action as we're in top deck mode.
Yeah, but GHP, he's all out of gas, and Hulkbuster, I mean, sure, he has he has the Runehammer, but he also just has virtual card advantage in the form of the War Cries, and there comes the 13-13, and GHP has this 2-1 that is not going to do it.
All right, so it looks like this series is evened up going into sideboarding 1-1. So now we get to make all those little adjustments that we talked about. We were mentioning Hulkbuster's moves before, but let's go in that a bit deeper here. What are you seeing as stuff that you would change in this?
So on the side of Hulkbuster, he's got 4 Vanquishes, which I think are come in right away, right? I mean, they don't hit Seraph, but they hit the Heart of the Vaults and the Titans and the Icaria and whatever other threatening, obnoxious units you just don't want to deal with, especially when you have all these weapons that you need to get through with or something. Outside of that, I think Copper Hall Bailiff is just not the matchup for that. Enforcer is fine, but this is once again I don't think the matchup for that. It's more for like Dawn Walkers or Champion of Chaos or Umber Reaper or something like that. I don't think you really want to silence things that are mostly getting value out of their stats. But I do think Steward is reasonable just because it's a nice deadly blocker.
Yeah, I like Stewart as a blocker. Do you think something like the Vanquishes coming in make a lot of sense because we want to take out some number of weapons. Like even the torches aren't good. You're looking to cut those for something too. Maybe like just go big with these dumb smuggler stashes.
Yes. So I don't love Stash just because 9 weapons is enough to play Stash, sure. But
But
I don't love it with only 1 maiden.
all right, yeah, that's fair enough. I could see that, especially when you know your opponent's going to try and get even more aggressive. Maybe getting greedier is not the correct response by adding smuggler stats. So on Notorious GHP side, you mentioned you expect the harsh rules to come out and Notorious GHP to try and assume the role of the aggressor. So what do you think is going to come in here then? If those are coming.
Potentially, if he wants, he could bring in Leave a Witness, but I don't think that's necessarily. If he still wants harsh rule and doesn't want harsh rule, he could bring in Leave a Witness. But I think he has better options. I think Diogo is a big one, right?
Yeah.
The activation on that is really powerful. I think Reality Warden is good. I think Shattered Glass Mage is okay, but you don't know how many weapons are coming out, so maybe you don't want that.
I think I still like Mage, even if it doesn't have a weapon. If you're warping it in, that's still card advantage.
True.
And the 5 attack is just going to be relevant facing down Ikarias and Moktos. So I think that card, simply because it has warp, might make.
I like Stand Together, Protect, and Healer if you're just cutting things that aren't units for more units.
Yeah, I can buy that too. So really the plan here for GHP is more threats, and hope that Hulkbuster runs out of it.
But we're into game 3 here now. And he's brought in the stashes. We can see at least 1 stash. So maybe there were too many things that he wanted to cut, and it just was slightly better than whatever else.
Like I said, sort of Icaria and Torch are really not appealing cards here. And once you cut all of those out, maybe you just end up having room to bring in a stash or two, or there's some other cards looking to cut as well. We'll see as we move forward here in this match, but it's not the card you exactly want to see in your opening hand.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm thinking post-board, GHP has a little bit of an advantage like he had, I think, in games 1 there. But I'm interested to see how it plays out because, once again, Mokto and Icaria are just very good threats against these mid-range decks because they grind super well and they get this virtual card advantage the same way that Heart does, but to a greater degree.
Yeah, I agree that I do like how GHP adjusts post-board because the biggest thing is that he gets to really focus the game plan and get rid of the harsh. Assuming they got rid of the harsh. We don't actually know that yet. I didn't get a chance to see if he actually cut them, but I imagine he did, and he's just going to be like, all right, I am the aggressor.
Yeah, and this Runehammer coming down, super crucial. Trades 2 for 1 with the Torch and the Seraph. That's where you want to be as the quote armory player.
And now Buster stuck on 4 power, debating on whether or not he just wants to trot out the 3/3 flyer here or for another day. It's not likely to be a relevant blocker to any threats GHP is going to be trotting out, but with the rest of the hand that he's got, plus his smuggler stash, he'll get it back eventually if he needs it.
Yeah, and he brought in the Valkyrie Enforcers, which he had plenty of stuff to cut, and Valkyrie Enforcer is far from the worst thing to bring in.
Meanwhile, GHP doesn't play down the Marshall now because it's not even an empty board to do anything with, and then rises here for something. What do you think it's going to be? A big charging Dio, or no? Looks like a Sandstorm type.
Yeah, he just he wants a way to deal with this, I guess. I'm wondering why he chose that over any other unit. I guess just because it's castable. Um, yeah, I guess just because it's castable. Like his other option is Iron Thorn, I guess,
Yeah.
which he already has one of, and Sandstorm Titan's a little bit better on defense.
Yeah. Of course, after Hulkbuster sees the opponent rise, he rises in kind and finds an Auric Runehammer to make it 6 attack and take out the Sandstorm Titan. Of course, GHP hitting Power Laster means a Heart of the Vault can come out here, or you can warp in a Shatterglass Mage.
Ooh, so tempting.
Gonna go with the
But
reduced cost Shatterglass Mage instead here.
yeah, having a 3-cost Shatterglass Mage is also very good. So I think Heart of the Vault is a fine play. Also, the more I think about rising for that Sandstorm Titan, if you're just looking for a castable unit, Sandstorm Titan is very good against a deck that runs 4 copies of Mokto and Ikaria.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's no standout great choice in that scenario. Like if you get something allegedly aggressive like the Ogre, there's a chance it just gets blocked or doesn't do anything. So getting just the biggest, best castable thing in your deck. In the meantime, Hulkbuster's finding that power now with Martial Iron Thorn coming down, most likely going to pull the trigger on this heart.
So I like Hulkbuster's chances this game as it's developed. GHP has drawn more power, so he's kind of running out of cards. Rise to the Challenge is going to help a lot here.
Yeah. He's got to decide if he wants to get more cards via Heart of the Vault or just get the beater and Ikaria, and opts to go Ikaria. In the meantime, Hulkbuster can't put out this Mokto. It costs double Shadow, and instead will simply stash back a bunch of Runehammers that conveniently can kill Ikaria.
I was gonna say that's definitely not a weak play. 6 and 5 attack Runehammers are very good against GHP's deck. If there was one weapon to play, that's it.
Crucially here, I think Notorious GHP might change the plans. Nope. Goes for the Ikaria anyway, makes this Heart of the Vault an 11-11, and gets to hold up Desert Marshal here to block one of these hammers, which
it's pretty cool to watch the War Cry just appear on top of your deck.
Oh, yeah. So here comes the Desert Marshal. Now, Hulkbuster could have more reliably killed this Ikaria by, silencing and then vanquishing it, but that would have required you to think about playing around Desert Marshal there, and I think just going for the hammer value was the correct line. GHP just happened to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's only one card in GHP's deck that does that, and it's Desert Marshal, and you can only run 4. So, and Valkyrie Enforcer and Vanquish just get a lot more mileage. They're more versatile.
So crucially, Hulkbuster uses the Valkyrie Enforcer to pop the Aegis on Ikaria. Ikaria will still get that War Cry. Heart of the Vault comes down for more value, kills a weapon, and it's looking like Hulkbuster is going to be forced to Harsh Rule here.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a terrifying board to be looking at, and there's another War Cry on top of the deck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is what we were talking about, just Notorious GHP trying to overwhelm Hulkbuster's answer. Hulkbuster's had a ton of them, right? We've seen stashed back Auric Runehammers, a bunch of Harsh Rules, Vanquishes, everything, and the threats keep coming, and finally Mokto tries to lock up the skies. Hulkbuster finally able to cast it and find a spot for it. And we'll see if this can get him back in the game.
Yes, he's going to be relying on. Oh, that's a large Desert Marshal. He's going to be relying. I was going to say relying on Mokto to revenge to sort of keep him in the game with card advantage in getting free 6/6s. But that's just out the window now that the Desert Marshal comes down.
Yeah, and even after stashing back 2 large Runehammers, GHP just shrugs them off like they're nothing, debating on whether or not he wants to cast this Shatterglass Mage here to get that 1 extra point of damage, doing all the little math here, figuring out the calculations. This crucially puts his opponent at 12, which could matter if somehow Hulkbuster only kills the 4/4 here or something.
Yeah, it would have given him lethal this turn, because otherwise he would have only done 11.
But Hulkbuster showing, hey, I got nothing, and Notorious GHP says, hey, I drew a torch.
Exactsies.
So there we go. That is game 3 in the books. That was our first post-board game. They might go back and make some adjustments. But currently, Notorious GHP is up 2 games to 1 here, looking to close it out.
It's
and
in there. Look
ooh,
at it.
the
It's
Spirit of Resistance is there. Do you want to break this card down?
Yeah, so I really want that card to be in there just because I love that card. Don't know that it's good. There maybe he just has no better options, but a 12 drop is just really slow. But they were almost at 12 that game, I think.
Yeah,
Uh,
Hulkbuster got to like 11, I want to say. 10 or
yeah,
11 power.
our GHP got to 11 because he was 1
Yeah.
away from making 3 owls. I remember that.
Mhm.
But yeah, Spirit of Resistance, if you can cast it, it's actually very good in these like mid-range grindy matchups because like another unit, and it's like super Heart of the Vault, right? Heart of the Vault like kills one thing maybe, and then like is a unit also, or like a big
Yeah.
Carnosaur. This is just like, nah, I'm gonna kill everything and then be a giant unit. Yeah, so it's more comparable to Carnosaur, I guess.
It's like a really hard to cast Leave a Witness.
Yeah.
But it's here, and we'll see how it goes as this game is underway. And both players seem to have pretty good fixing this time around, and Choice GHP's got some good threats coming real soon.
Oh yeah. Rise, Quarry, and Slay are all really good cards in Hulkbuster's hand, but
Mhm.
double Sandstorm Titan is going to be really triple Sandstorm Titan is going to be really rough to work through without a harsh rule.
Hulkbuster's got a nice lineup of answers, but they're going to be taxed pretty hard here. Got to decide if he wants to take 5 damage or use a removal spell, and instead opts to just Rise here.
Yeah,
Maybe get a hammer with a double smuggler stash in play plus the Vanquish. That's going to give you a really nice turn.
I'm not. The hammer is going to be really rough because he's not expecting a million Sandstorm Titans. I mean, sure, he's expecting it to die to the Amber Acolyte anyway, but still, it's one hammer is not nearly as good when there's a bunch of big units in play.
Yeah, but crucially here, this Vanquish is reduced in cost. That means he can both hammer and Vanquish here. And again, he had a hand with double Smuggler stash, and you're just looking for things to do with stash.
Yeah, absolutely.
So here he gets to mostly clear off this board. This hammer will die, but it did its job as kind of another slay, right? But you can actually get it back.
Yeah, so both players still trading 1 for 1. And he's got an answer to the first Titan, and then he can kind of maybe, he's drew the harsh roll. So now it's looking all right for Hulkbuster. Like he's got these 2 stashes to come right back after all these 2 players just trade off their hands, and then he's just going to be left with Mocto on the top of his deck and 2 stashes.
Yeah, right now it's looking okay for Hulkbuster. Again, the hand is pretty slow, but it's got another harsh rule. But these Heart of the Vault decks can turn things around quickly if they find Heart of the Vault. Or maybe a Diogo here if he wants the pressure. But I think you'll just trot out another 5/6.
Yeah, I think he'll feel comfortable just playing the Titan, unless he's really concerned about Icarias and things like that, and he like wants to save a Titan. But I think you just play it proactively.
And Hulkbuster responds by throwing out a harsh rule, just trying to preserve that health total. And we'll eventually get down these Moctos when it feels right. DHP finds the 8th power, so is threatening to activate Diogo next turn.
Yeah, do you think the silence comes down right here?
I mean, if you're a Hulkbuster, can you afford to give all of your opponents units that are large and awesome charge and double damage in a game that you're hoping to grind out? I don't think you can.
Yeah, Diogo's a little bit more powerful than maybe some people gave him credit for when he was first spoiled. Certainly, I underestimated him, but he's really good in these grindy matchups. It gives a lot of late game to decks that otherwise wouldn't have it.
Yeah, that charge being super crucial here as well against a weapons-based deck where you can just snipe a weapon out of nowhere. But it is just a 3/5, and Mocto can block that for now. We'll see what GHP can rip off the top, but it's another sigil.
So Hulkbuster is technically stabilizing here, but he's just inches away from death. He's at 7 life. I mean, like enough Heart of the Vaults off the top of the deck or something can just end it for him pretty quickly. But getting breathing room just to stash back and get the Rune Hammer gives him a lot of space now.
Yeah, Flail is a nice card, but not when you're this low on health. It's really sweet with stash, but GHP is just ripping more power here, just not getting the gas. Meantime, Hulkbuster finds another stash, and now we'll finally get a chance to start putting a clock on GHP here. Opting to just swing with both and give him as few draw steps as possible.
Yeah, I think that's the play. I think GHP is
Mhm.
going to need something like the 2 Parliaments to get back into the game or something, because he's just dead here, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
he's just
Hulkbuster is
yeah.
dead. 6 plus 11 is 17, and GHP knows the math and scoops it up.
Yeah, so that's 2 to 2. So like we
Yeah,
said,
it
it was
is.
going to be close, and it's been close.
Yeah, GHP drawing a little more power than he'd like there at the end. Was hoping to, a lot of these matchups against these control decks come down to how many Heart of the Vaults did you draw? And the answer to that game was 0.
Yeah,
We
how many
saw how
Heart of the
painful that was.
Vaults? How many Ikaria War Cries?
Yeah.
How much power do you draw?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, both these players are playing very well, right? They're both playing super tight. There's not going to be a lot of misplays, so it really some of the variance gets eliminated there with just the tightness of the play.
Yeah. All right, and GHP has a hand with beautiful fixing. Could even play a turn 2 Temple Scribe if they so desire. And on the other end, I lost sight of Hulkbuster's hand, but it looked decent from what I saw. It had an Inspire and a Harsh Rule and stuff like that.
Yeah, these decks have been pretty consistent. Like we talk about, these greedy triple influence decks, but there's just a ton of fixing. They're spending a lot of turns just fixing, but they're not running. There's no Stone Scar in the top 8. There's no Skycrag in the top 8. They found, all these decks have found ways to deal with aggro. So I think it's been working out, all the fixing and all the greedy so-called 3-faction decks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially on GHP side where you have things like Find the Way and Amber Acolyte. You have tools to offset that greed. You're just sacrificing it by you're getting your fixing, but as you said, a little bit slowly. And on the other end, Hulkbusters got fixing and not a whole lot to do with it. At least has this Harsh Rule, hoping to be alive in time to cast that. In the meantime, GHP is just curving out with threat after threat.
Yeah, absolutely. He's got the Reality Warden coming down if he wants it. I don't know if he's going to overcommit into this Harsh Rule. I think he kind of expects it now that he sees the triple Justice and 4th Power come down on curve.
Yeah, this is a tough spot for Hulkbuster. Knows that they have, this Harsh Rule in hand, but if he doesn't use it, it's going to take 8 damage here. But you do get to Rise, so maybe they commit to the board in response to that.
Yeah.
But opts to play it safe and bank.
Yeah, I think he's got to vanquish, because if you don't vanquish, you're just saying to GHP like, "Hey, I have Harsh Rule," and GHP's like, "Okay, I'll just attack you for 7."
Yeah.
So you have to make him play another threat.
Crucially here, we see a sideboard card out of Notorious GHP in Reality Warden. Being a 7/7 means you can't even Rise for a Rune Hammer to kill this thing. It is just big.
Oh yeah,
real big.
But we're gonna see maybe Ikaria next turn from Hulkbuster.
Yeah,
Sure, he's gonna be taking a ton of damage, but he's gonna have a lot of counter pressure going on with the 2. Oh, and he's got even now a 7 attack Ikaria, which is gonna get in and block the Reality Warden.
Yeah, this is the classic, oh, I'm under pressure? No, you're under pressure. I've got 2 Ikarias. Let's do this plan. We'll see how that ends up working out for Hulkbuster. As you said, critically, Rise to Challenge, giving Ikaria that 7th point of strength means it can trade with this Reality Warden and get some more cries and some damage in the meantime.
Yeah, so even though he's pretty far behind on life, he's starting that Warcry virtual card advantage thing that he's doing there with the Maktos and the Ikarias, which is how he sort of makes up by not having cards like Wisdom of the Elders or Staff of the Stories or Chalice, other card draw engines that control decks typically have. And he's just going to keep that train going, and it's going to be really difficult for GHP to find a way back into this game, even with outside of getting his own Ikaria or something off of the Seraph.
GHP trots out a Seraph, which Hulkbuster has an answer to, has the Auric Runehammer, but opts to instead just keep the pressure going with Ikaria. And Seraph hits an Aijin Imperial Armor, so you can pay 4 to exhaust Aijin and give a unit +4/+4. That's going to make a large unit that Auric Runehammer can't kill. So now there's some tension here for Hulkbuster. Does he kill the Seraph or does he kill the Aijin?
Yeah, I think you just kill the Aijin, because you're putting GHP in a position where he either has to tap out for a Seraph activation and hope he gets a flyer, or just is going to die in 2 turns. Because otherwise you're taking way too much damage on the crackback from that Ejin. That's 6 attack is no joke.
Yeah, 6 attack would mean you're forced to trade your Ikaria. And Notorious GHP spins the lottery wheel again off Seraph, hits another legend, but it's a Wandering Wisp. The old 1-1 for 1.
Yeah, not what he wanted to see there.
Does have its ability active, so next turn it'll turn into a 5/5 if it lives. But, let's see. Hulkbuster will probably draw a card before getting the Warcry 5 here.
I hope so.
He's already got plenty of Warcries on top.
Yeah, so he's got oh, never mind. I was gonna say that GHP's got one more Seraph spin because he's got the torch for the Runehammer, but that Slay is gonna kill that Seraph for sure.
Slay will most likely kill Seraph here. I can agree with that, except for the part that Protect is also in hand.
Oh, so yeah. You're right.
Got it all to keep this Seraph alive. But he's also at 2 health, so he needs to find an answer to this Ikaria, whether it be a blocker or something.
There was also a potential argument for not using Slay just in case he got an actual flyer or played a Sandstorm Titan, but yeah.
Diogo could have maybe presented lethal in some universe, but just a little short here. And that looks like it means Hulkbuster's going to get this series unless something odd happens off this Seraph activation. Let's find out.
And it's just a Rakano Artisan.
Not quite.
In a deck that definitely doesn't want it.
Yep, so Hulkbuster taking his chances with this Seraph, instead saying, you've got to hit something relevant on it before I kill you. And Seraph doesn't deliver. And Ikaria gets the job done. We don't even get to see what those Warcries hit. There were like
not at all.
20 Warcries on top of the deck.
Ikaria just being a sweet Endurance Aegis Impending Doom.
So there we go. That means Hulkbuster goes to the finals, taking that match 3-2, and will be matched up against Ogre Man, who just defeated Marius 3-2. So, yeah, that's some exciting stuff. Ogre Man on Praxis mid-range, despite all the hate for this deck we've seen throughout the tournament, it still finds a way to the finals for the second week in a row, and that should be quite the showdown.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about between all the matchups, but I think we just really want to get into the finals here.
Yep, so we're going to work on setting that up. Then we'll break down the matchup and get into the action right after this short break. Thank you all so much for tuning in, and stick around as we got the finals coming right up.